Mouse1 here. In this video, I'm going to review Matilda, the new film based on the musical adaptation of Roald Dahl's classic book. The first part of the video will be non-spoiler, and the second half will have spoilers for the film Matilda 2022, the Netflix film. Bear in mind that I've only watched the film once and I didn't take notes or anything, so I'll definitely have missed some things. I watched it in the cinema, so I didn't really want to be worried about focusing on writing notes the entire time. I just wanted to enjoy the film. Also, I haven't read the book in probably about 12 years, but I watched the 1996 film to death growing up, so I was impulsively comparing the two throughout the film. I actually rewatched that version before this review. It's a great movie, it still really holds up, and there might be some spoilers for that version as well. But other than that, let's dive in. Overall, I really enjoyed this film. It captures the whimsical insanity that this musical requires. I'll give the child acting a passable. It wasn't always great, but it wasn't the worst in the world, and the dancing made up for it and then some. I think they probably looked for dancers first and then hoped they could also act, because the dancing was great, the acting not so much. The group numbers were definitely a highlight of the film. The school song, Bruce, and Revolting Children were definite standouts, and the visual effects were pretty good. I mean, it didn't seem revolutionary or anything, but what it was trying to be, it definitely hit the mark. Emma Thompson as Miss Trunchbull was also fantastic casting. She absolutely nailed every scene. If you enjoy musicals, you'll probably enjoy this film. I'd say it does feel a bit like a fever dream though, so if you're more into grounded, serious, real world stuff, it might not be your cup of tea. All I can say is, it was a lot of fun to watch. But let's start dipping into spoiler territory, shall we? The opening number, Miracle, was a little odd. It starts with parents looking at their babies in an Inside Out-esque visual, while the little kid voices sing the first lines of the song as though it's an inner monologue from the baby. But the hospital scene overall was pretty good, and Mrs. Wormwood's obliviousness to her pregnancy is really funny. I love how comically over the top the parents are. Like, when the mum comes out of like the kitchen or wherever and says, "We forgot to send it to school," or whatever, it was like unbelievably like comically dialed up to 500. I also thought it was hilarious how Matilda got upset that her father told the headmistress of her new school that she was a troublemaker, so she instantly put hydrogen peroxide or something into the hair tonic and did handstands on the roof. And it's like, is this a regular occurrence for her? Because if so, then I reckon the dad has a bit of a point. And the way they changed the school from the dark, torturous Crunchum Hall to the big, friendly, fun school or whatever at the end, I'd argue wasn't a school. It seemed more like a fairground, which, while a lot of fun, I'm not sure is a particularly conducive learning environment. And I know that it sounds like I'm whining a bit, but I really did enjoy the film. If it wasn't this insane, I don't think that it would have the same charm to it. I found Matilda's power set a little confusing. I mean, she still had the telekinesis that we know and love from her, and they give a half-hearted explanation for it, something about her brain squishing out of her eyes, and it seemed to be related to strong emotions. Cool. Also seems like she can control the weather, because there's something akin to a small tornado at the start of Quiet. Really like that moment, by the way. It was a super dramatic way of doing it. But sure, if she can move objects, it stands to reason that she can create wind. What is wind if not moving the air, after all? But the way she just instinctively knows Miss Honey's insane backstory and like bits and pieces that builds up across the film, when it's later on revealed that it's a true thing and not just something she made up, when she also gets inspired by random stimuli from the world around her. Like, what were the odds of her mother happening to use the word escapologist? Or how, in a story made up by a child, I'd be willing to buy that the mother survived breaking every bone in her body, but it's stretching the idea that this is actually what happened to Miss Honey's mother a bit thin. If it's meant to be believable, maybe leave it at snapping her neck. It would be the same function plot-wise and feel more plausible. And why is it only Miss Honey's life story that Matilda can just become aware of, other than the fact it's the only one that's important to the plot? Like, why doesn't she just know Lavender's backstory? Why doesn't she just know Miss Trunchbull's backstory? Why is it only Miss Honey? It's just not clear why that would be a part of telekinesis. It does lead to some really cool moments though, like when I'm Here is replayed over My House to create a really powerful duet. It's really, really strong, and I love the moment, but the setup is just a bit strange. Also, I didn't find Miss Trunchbull that scary in this version. Like, the phys ed class, the worst part in my eyes was the run to the class, and and even that didn't seem much worse than the cross-country I did in school. Trunchbull even helps the girl who got stuck in the mud. Like, I half expected her to leave her there. And when I saw the obstacle course, I genuinely thought, God, I wish my school had that. That looks so cool. And the chokey was scary, but, and forgive me if this sounds a bit sadistic, I wish we saw Matilda get locked in. It's one of the moments in the 1996 version that makes Miss Trunchbull absolutely formidable, and it helps set how scary the chokey actually is. In this version, Bruce gets locked in off screen and then becomes Miss Trunchbull's assistant for the rest of the film. And I get that they need to stay faithful to the staged musical, but still, and I also know that a lot of that stuff doesn't happen in the book, but there is a bit of wriggle room in that a lot of other book to screen adaptations wouldn't have, just because Matilda is so short that you can add stuff in, and I think those scenes would help bolster the plot slightly. And slight aside, it just threw me how they dropped the article when talking about the chokey. Like, they'll say things like, she'll put you in chokey, or have you ever been in chokey, instead of the chokey. It just felt a little off to me, but I guess it's meant to be how you wouldn't say, go to the detention or whatever. Back on topic though, the scene from the 1996 version when Matilda and Miss Honey break into Miss Trunchbull's house genuinely scared the pants off me as a kid. I believed that Miss Trunchbull would actually torture and kill them if they were caught. It seemed really intense, like she really was a bull who'd see red at the smallest trigger and throw the nearest child out the window. I just didn't get that from this version of her so much. One thing that I do wonder is why someone who hates children so much chooses to work in a school to stop the disease before it can fester, I guess. She just doesn't seem particularly happy in her job. I mean, she basically hallucinates life without children in it. Maybe a profession in child education was the wrong career move for her. And the final showdown with the chalkboard and the CGI chain monster was fine. I mean, it didn't blow me away, but it was a perfectly adequate set piece, if a bit generic. I mean, CGI monsters smacking people, very cool, not exactly unique anymore, but I've done too much whining, so let's talk about the dancing, because yeah, it was really good. Bruce really stood out for me. The way Miss Trunchbull would walk around and the dance moved around behind her like a Mexican wave so that she never saw the chaos that was happening. I also found the chokey chant pretty memorable and intense, especially it was for me one of the more forgettable numbers in the soundtrack. School Song and Revolting Children were great. I was a little disappointed not to see Loud in there. Apparently they filmed it just wasn't included in the final version, but it's a pretty fun song for them to skip, but I understand why it is a bit of a halt on the pace. I don't know where they'd put it in narratively in this version that they've constructed to work as a film. It would come out just a bit out of left wing, I think, but yeah, kind of sad not to see that. But overall, this was a fun, whimsical take on the classic story. As it stands, if I had to watch a film of Matilda, I'd still be more inclined to watch the 1996 version. It's just a bit more grounded, a bit more my thing. But if I was a kid and wasn't blinded by nostalgia, I could see the appeal of a more fantastical take on the story. But apart from that, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did. It lets me know that this is something that you want to see more of. Comment down below what you thought of Matilda, if you've seen it, the new version, or if you watched the old version, tell me what you think of that. But apart from that, I'll see you next week with another video. Bye!